Hello everyone and welcome back. Today I'm taking a little bit of a break on that Ford 9-inch that I posted in the last video. I'm currently waiting for some hardware for the pinion support, the studs to hold the third member into the housing, as well as the ring gear bolts, and some smaller studs because the 5/8 studs are going to be way overkill for the wheels and setup we're running. So instead, we have this huge Suburban behind me. So this is currently sitting on 37s. And the hood is here. I'm 6 foot tall. So the issue going on with this is it overheats like crazy. So he said, you know, you're out plowing snow with it, whatever, driving it, and within 10-15 minutes, it always ends up hot. So I asked customers, said, what do you mean by hot? Because there's certain people that think that an engine needs to run at 160 all the time, or some people say 200 is hot, or whatever. So he said it'll climb around 215, 220. He said he's seen it go as high as 246, I think, at one point, and at that point, 240 is pretty hot. So today we're going to try and diagnose what is going on with the 454 that's in it, why it's getting hot, and see what we can do to fix it. All right, so first off here, this used to be an old fire truck with a 6.2 diesel in it, the non-turbo gutless anemic slug. It still has the 4L80, so it has a fast transmission controller controlling that. You can see that somebody has put a 454 in here with FI Tech fuel injection. It runs okay. The customer's telling me that, you know, the guy he bought the engine from says it's from 7072 Chevy, so that leads me to think it's rather an LS5 or an LS6, right? But I had my doubts because those are very valuable. So I pulled the valve cover just out of curiosity, and first thing I found was that 1409-2360. So that leads us to 85 to 89 peanut port for essentially worst heads that GM ever built. So I just got off the phone with them. I told them, I said, hey, listen, this isn't some big valuable motor that you might have thought we had, you know. So we're going to continue with our diagnosing here and try to figure out what's going on. So the next step I'm going to do is I'm going to pull spark plugs. Try to compare all 8 of them, see if we possibly have one that might be a little white or have some sort of crystal on it. That might indicate that we've got rather a head gasket or a cracked head or possibly even a cracked block somewhere. One thing I did do right off the bat here was check the radiator, and the level is way down. It's probably halfway down the radiator, so coolant level is very low. He swears it's never blown any out. The coolant hose is hooked to the factory reservoir, which is bone dry, so it doesn't lead me to believe that it's leaking it out. I did have the truck running for a bit here and wasn't able to see any leaks anywhere, so the only other place it could be is burning it. So let's get these plugs out and see what we see. Alright, so we got all 8 plugs out now. And for the most part, they all look pretty good. Alright, there's the back 2. It's the order they came out. So we have 1, 3, 5, 7, and 2, 4, 6, 8. 2, as well as, or sorry, 4. It's the second one I removed, that's why I was calling it 2. So cylinder 4 here, as well as cylinders 1 and 5, all look a little lean. Now, they're white because of 2 reasons, right? It's rather lean, or it's because that's where it's possibly burning antifreeze. This, or 1 and 5 here, to me, have a little bit more of the golden brown look to them, whereas 3 looks awfully white. The camera doesn't really want to focus on it all that well, but there we go. So anyways, that looks awfully white. So that one's kind of my one I'm suspecting as of right now. I'm going to do a little bit of research here real quick and see if the casting number on these heads are potentially notorious for cracking or anything, and you know, at least give me a little bit more of a place to look. Well, unfortunately, I'm kind of striking out here on seeing if I can find anything online about if there's, you know, notorious for cracking or whatever, certain cylinder heads and certain castings throughout different years, you know, may be prone to cracking more so than others or whatever. But since I'm kind of striking out on that, I'm going to start draining this radiator and getting ready to head that way of tearing the heads off from it. Not really looking forward to taking 100-pound cylinder heads off down in here. I'm on a truck that's this tall, but it is what it is. Let's keep going. You know, normally I wouldn't have any issue unhooking wires. You know, I do a bunch of wiring and EFI stuff on the side here, but when it's done this poorly, I really get a little worried when it comes to unhooking stuff, you know. And boy, I may just try to loosen some stuff up and droop this throttle body up over top of the booster, because it can join the rest of that mess. Well, I don't love it. At least I got a little bit of room to work now. So now it's time to go get a 9/16 wrench and get the distributor out. See, the vacuum advance isn't hooked up on that either, so I'm sure that helps it run good. So yeah, so we're gonna go get 9/16, get the distributor hold down clamp off, get the distributor out, and then the next step is going to be to get these 12-point ARP bolts out for the intake, pop the intake manifold off, we'll get the other valve cover off, and at that point I guess we'll start pulling rocker arms and exhaust manifold bolts and then get ready to lift the heads. Alright, so there's all our hardware. So now I got a pry bar here. We're going to go ahead and pop this intake off. Try to, I should say. It's been a while since I popped a big block intake. Gotta try to remember where the best place to do this is. Here we go. My chair's sliding away. There. There's all our RTV popped off. Lift the old girl up and out of the way. Alright, so what do we got? We got a flat tappet cam. A little bit of crud came down in, which is no big deal, that always happens. Alright, so just your typical peanut ports, like I kind of suspected, based on the casting number. But everything else looks clean. It's not like I'm seeing any sort of milkiness around where it looks like it's got contamination from a crack that's not only going into the cylinder or combustion chamber, but also going into the oil passage or whatever. So I guess, like I said, now we'll get the valve cover off. We'll get all our rockers apart, and then exhaust manifolds. Alright, well, I happened to be on the phone for a few minutes there while I got the rockers off. But rockers, push rods, everything's out now. So I'm going to start getting the exhaust manifolds unhooked. I'm really worried about these. I don't know what part of the country or part of the world that you're viewing this from, but we have enough salt up here that a lot of times exhaust manifold bolts, not to mention when they get heat cycled like they do, are bad enough, but if you factor a little bit of salt in there too, and they usually don't come out that well. So it's not the ones on the head side that I'm worried about, it's the ones down at the flanges. I'm hoping there's enough flex that I don't even have to remove them, but I probably will, just because there's head bolts underneath the exhaust ports. So only one way we're going to find out. Uh-oh. That ain't good. That one was just hanging out in there. spinners. I get scared doing this without an extension here. Something about filleting your fingers on that machined surface for the valve cover gasket. It's not a good time. Ooh. That might be the only one here that so far that feels like it was adequately tight. And maybe if that's the case, that could be a good thing. You know, maybe if somebody, whoever built this, whenever it was built, forgot to go around and do their second set of, or their third step on their for their torque specs or whatever, you know, and the head wasn't clamped properly. Maybe we have a head gasket issue and nothing else is damaged. And this can be thrown back together with a simple gasket kit from Napa. So we shall see. Now I get the fun part. Okay, there's one. Two. Okay. Are you kidding me? Oh, that's my kind of luck right there. Alright, I got all the head bolts out. It's time to pop this head open and see what surprises we find. I am really not looking forward to lifting this out of here. Especially when you deal with LSs all the time. Like all the time, like every week. Nice lightweight aluminum heads that are half the size of these. Alright. Here we go. Okay, it's out down here on the ground. I'll try to wet this thing up a little bit here and see if we see anything. It really doesn't appear that this has a ton of time on it. And the only reason I'm saying that is because the way the head gasket didn't appear to really stick much as it was coming out. And one thing I am looking for on here while we're doing this, and you can see it in the camera a little bit here, all these blue marks on here are from the gasket itself. So I'm just trying to go around and look and actually see if I see any imperfections in that. So for example, like you can see the outline here of the combustion chamber, right? If we were seeing a dark charge spot right here, we would know that it was breaching this part of the head gasket and actually picking up, you know, coolant from a head bolt passage or wherever. So that's why it's important to get this cleaned up and dried so we can get a better look at it. I'm also going to go pull the gasket off, and we'll hopefully that'll stay in good shape as well, and then we will get a better idea about what's going on here. All right, again, we're gonna be pretty gentle with this coming off from here so that we don't kind of give us any false indications, maybe would be a good way of putting it. So what I mean by that, get my camera set back up here. So what I mean by that is, just like I said with the head itself, if you have a head gasket that's been seated for a really long time, or you damage it when it gets removed, sometimes it's difficult to tell what condition it was in and if you actually had any sort of leaks or issues going on. The reason I say that is because if you've never done one before, so what'll happen is say, all right, this is our side that was facing the head, right? And this one's facing the block. So say right here, this started to tear a little bit. Well, when we pull it off, is the tear from when we removed it, or is the tear part of, damage to the gasket and contributing to our coolant consumption and overheating? You can see a little bit of that going on right here. Right, this is where it was like adhesive to the block, where it's sealed to the block, which is good. That's what the gasket's supposed to do. But like I said, it can also throw you for a loop a little bit if you're trying to find a bad spot in it. But I'm really not seeing anything in this gasket that's looking suspect at all. Huh. Alright, well, I'm going to take another closer look at this head, as well as crawl down in there and look at the block, and then I think it's time to go to lunch. Well, guys and gals, I think that's going to do it for this segment of the video. I really think the next thing I'm going to have to do here is probably get the heads over to our local machine shop and just have them Magnaflux, where they can actually inspect them and check for cracks. And I may have to go as far as actually pulling the block out here as well, just to get a better look at this. At this point, though, I'm really starting to suspect that the fact that the head bolts really weren't crazy tight very well could be the issue. The fact that the gaskets never even tried to seal. So those are my next places to look. In the meantime, make sure to hit the like button, share, and subscribe to the channel so you can see the next bit coming up here. We're going to have some more work on the Nissan. We're going to finish our Ford 9-inch build and hopefully figure this out. Thanks for tuning in.